Hey guys, what's going on? It is Lance and Lauren here, and we are doing Elevated with Lance and Lauren, Part 2, Episode 19, actually. So last week we actually talked about, let me actually see the where I had the title of it. There we go. Last week, so we talked about self-awareness and how that is a must for your long-term success in anything you do, but self-awareness isn't what you think it is. What we talked about last week was actually that self-awareness is more or less, when it comes down to it, other people awareness blended with like emotional intelligence, and that's what this is. Today we're going to talk about some of the dangers of the self-love movement and how it kind of masquerades as self-awareness, but it's not the same thing.
That's right.
So Lauren and I have, this has been something that we've talked about for many, many years actually. But it's one of those things that, again, we want people, I see two sides of the coin where some people realize the dangers of it and then they make an excuse to not work on any self-development whatsoever or learn how to be different. And then the other side of it is
just
that,
as dangerous.
Oh my gosh. The other part of it is where they do connect to the self-love thing so much that they excuse negative behaviors because they're so entrapped in self-love that it becomes narcissism. And this is something that I know people are thinking, oh no, I struggle with self-love and I hate myself and I don't do this and that's all we're seeking. That is what you're seeking, but the self-love movement in and of itself, and again, Lauren and I we've kind of, seen this movement happen, especially within the fitness arena more than anything. And this is where we want to talk about what it is versus what isn't. And again, self-development is going to be something that is going to lead to a better self for your community and to make an impact, positive impact on your community. Self-love is based, again, when you get to the root of this, it is putting yourself first, thinking of yourself first, and basically making sure that as long as there is something for you out of any situation, you're going to do it as long as it feels good for you. I know that you're probably not there because you're thinking, man, I just struggle with just liking myself, but the further you get down there, that is where it leads to. And that is, again, and I don't want to get weird here, but that is rooted in the occult. So we'll talk about that in another video, but this is where we're going to start today. So nevertheless, we want to talk about this because, again, number one is that there's so much self-love, self-focus, narcissism, and so forth in today's age. And again, this is where this stems from. While the oxygen mask principle is something that is very true in that you can't help people the best way until you're healthier yourself, that doesn't mean that you focus only on yourself and your wants, or you're going to find yourself becoming inhibited or self-focused that, again, you only seek after things that feel good. This is shallow, this is short, very short-sighted, and this is where, again, we're not taming the flesh, we're seeking after instantaneous gratitudes or gratification. This is not the way that success, or especially long-term success or fulfillment, is built.
I was going to say something to that. This is kind of an example. So an example of that would be this, and it's fresh on my brain because I've had a few conversations with clients. So let's say you have a season of life that is really challenging and you aren't taking care of yourself anymore. So meaning you've been committed to your, in our world, you're committed to your macro plan, you're committed to your workouts, and you're committed to taking care of your body. But all of a sudden there's a season in life that's going on and all of that has gone out the window. Well, that's not the kind of self-love that we're saying is bad, right? You need to do that because let me tell every one of you moms something, every one of you wives, every one of you best friends, sisters, brothers. If you are not in a place of health, physical health, mental health, spiritual health, if you are not in a place of those things, you are not going to be able to serve other people in the very capacity that you are designed to serve other people because you yourself are a mess. That is not the kind of self-love
you can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly. And so that's not what we are getting at. What we are talking about is the person who goes, yeah, I'm not doing that because it doesn't benefit me. Yeah, I'm not doing that. That isn't for me. This isn't that because it isn't about me. I'm not doing it.
And this is more, we're showing you more of an attitude of a negative thing where the more secretive or the more hidden or we'll say obscure version of this where it's very sneaky isn't like this where it's, yeah, I'm not doing this and whatever. It's subtle.
Yep.
Where you begin choosing over your family, you begin choosing things that gratify you and only you. Now, Tony Robbins didn't invent this concept as far as talking about the 4 different stages of experiences, but what we're talking about when this self-love movement is at its worst is where you're choosing what's called stage 3 experiences. And stage 3 experiences feel good, are not good for you, are not good for the greater good, and are not good for others. It only feels good. That's all it serves. This is what self-love, the negative side of the self-love movement leads to. It doesn't only look like, well, I'm not doing that because of X, Y, and Z. It can also look just very simply just like, you know what? I feel like I deserve this. And what you do is you choose something that you feel that you, quote, deserve, and it's selfish, and it doesn't really keep in mind the any sort of catalyst that happens that affects other people. This is where self-love is selfish. That is not self-love. Self-love, again, when we're talking about like actually self-worth, we're really talking about, again, being aware of other people, loving other people, and being so healthy and secure in yourself that you're able to love others better.
Absolutely.
That's the key here.
It is. And the other thing that I was going to say about that was, instead of just the attitude and the haughtiness, there's another version of that I was getting to, which is, I'm just going to do what I want. And that version of just doing what you want, do what feels good, is not necessarily good for you. It's not good for the greater good of humanity. It's not good for the greater good of your family. Sometimes people make really crappy decisions because in the moment they think that feels good for them, and they're going to make that choice.
And they're listening to their heart.
Yep. And that choice actually affects their entire life forever because of a choice that they made. So those are the kinds of things that we're trying to bring to light about this particular movement that is all of the rage right now.
Yeah, so the key is like, what are we really getting to? The key is that there's a balance, and that balance is self-love should not look identical to selfishness.
Right.
And when you're choosing things because they feel good or because they're, quote, your best, or you're, quote, living your best life. And again, I'm using air quotes because these things have been rebranded. If you follow different aspects of psychology, neuroscience, and I won't say propaganda, we'll say public relations, since Mr. Bernays renamed that. But if you follow this stuff, this occult ideal of do what thou wilt or do what you want has been rebranded. In the 90s, I saw it in grunge, where all of that it was just like, do what feels good,
Rebellion.
All of that, and then it got rebranded as all this, I'm living my best life. Living my best life is basically like, in the essence, I'm not saying anybody who's said that or utilized it, but that brand, that rebranding is for a bigger agenda, which is focus on yourself at all cost. This is the danger of, if you're not aware of keeping the end in mind at the beginning, where when you start off to decide like, man, I'm not happy with myself. I don't like who I am. I really have self-loathing issues. I've been there. She's been there.
Absolutely.
You might be interested in starting to look at the self-love aspects. Now, the caution is, the reason we're talking about this is because within fitness, it's easy, and we've seen this out of the 15 years that we've been in this industry, we've seen where people go from self-loathing to straight up so much self-consumption or self-focus that they make selfish decisions and they crash their lives. Yep. They begin, going out on their spouses, they leave their kids, and there's all these things, all because they're focused on living their best lives. The point with this is that, again, you're seeking self-worth, but if you don't determine what that looks like from the beginning, somebody else is going to lead you down their idea of what they think that it is that you're looking for, and that's how it's dangerous. You become going from self-loathing to just so much self-indulgences that you no longer choose to read, to grow, to learn, because you're choosing things that only feel good. Yeah. And it's short-sighted. It leads to death.
Yeah, every time.
So, and these are the things, and again, now, the alternate side of this is that I like Lauren said, which thank you for bringing that up, because again, I want to always make sure that the other side of that is mentioned. This doesn't mean that if you're struggling with self-worth, like we have both struggled with, that you shouldn't get to a point where you actually love yourself.
Right.
Because again, that is what we are.
Love who you are.
That's it.
Love how you're made.
Absolutely.
And know where you come from. Like all of
100%.
those things. Like that. Those were the game changers for me.
That's it. Absolutely. And again, we'll talk more about that. Where where we come from, all of those things, a lot more in depth as we go through. Those things will be more controversial. So, but nevertheless, though, the point with this is that it's so important to start off coming from this to determine. We've talked about videos of dissatisfaction and starting the awareness of, I'm not satisfied with how life is going right now.
Yep.
I don't like what I've become, and I'm ready to become this.
Yep.
Who I thought I was meant to be before X, Y, and Z convinced me that I'm not good enough. I'm not X, Y, and Z enough, whatever. Fill in the blank. The point here is that if you start off and determine, I want to be this kind of person, this is who I want to be, the type of person who's fit and confident, reads and learns, loves people and exudes empathy. That's who I set out to be. And what I did was every sort of new habit or new action that I began implementing was casting a vote for that kind of person.
I love this analogy.
And every time that I began choosing myself over that big picture, because again, I want to love who I am so that I can make an impact and a difference in the world. I want to be plugged into the community.
Yes.
And again, this is where we talk about the difference between independence, codependence, and interdependence.
Yep.
Interdependence is the most mature, but you can't have that without independence. Independence only happens when you're aware of what's lacking and where you want to go. When you do this, self-love, the real love of self, but not focus on self, meaning that you actually you're proud of who you are and you're confident that you were made for a purpose.
Yes.
And not by accident.
Come on.
That is the real self-love.
That'll preach.
Because it's not self-indulgent and it's not self-worship.
Boom.
That's the big thing. We are not gods.
Nope.
We are not God.
Yep.
And the thing of it is that one of the greatest things, and even secularists will say this, when you let go and stop trying to make yourself God of your universe and realize that there are things out of your control, but you are here with a purpose, all of a sudden you stop worrying and you start enjoying life once more. This is where this is all coming from here. So
it is. I was quite the selfish kid growing up.
I've heard.
Yeah. My granddad used to tell me all the time, Lauren, the world don't revolve around you. And I would just get so flustered when he would tell me that because I wasn't getting my way. But honestly, it was the best statement I could have heard my whole life. Because growing up, because I was just,
we
definitely
always heard,
one of those kids.
we heard, hey, you're part of the universe, but you're not the
You're
center
not the
of it.
center of it, yeah.
And it was,
and
it
then
was,
you probably had parents that said, I brought you in this world and I can take you out.
Yeah. So the thing of it is, guys, is that when you're starting off here, yes, we're fitness coaching, yes, we're lifestyle coaches, and we want you to live your best life, and we want you to be your best self. Not at the expense of other people, because now,
Right.
again, this is where we're letting go of the best self, which is empathy and love for self-worship. And that's, I believe me, that's not an area you want to go down. I've made some very, very bad decisions in my life in areas where I was self-consumed, and I didn't realize it. I didn't realize that those behaviors were narcissistic. And it wasn't because I was always thinking about like, oh, everybody look at me. I actually really retreated from the limelight. So I thought that I was not in danger of narcissism, but the fact is that everything that happened I was consumed with and focused on and worried that I became so inhibited that I was paralyzed with anxiety. And my point is that my narcissism didn't look like maybe somebody else's where I appeared haughty. But here's the issue. If you are thinking about yourself in your life above everybody else all the time, and I was because I was so anxious and miserable, you are focused on self only, and that's where I was. That is a level of narcissism. It's just different. But is it healthy for your marriage? No, that wasn't healthy. Does it allow me to serve her? No, I'm only focused on self because I'm so miserable. It's the same thing of those of you or those of us who don't have or don't make as much money, and we go, I don't want that X, Y, and Z. because, and I can lay with my head on the, on the pillow at night, and I don't need to be rich and all of these sort of things. But yet all you're thinking about is trying to plug in money to pay this bill and borrow from Peter to pay Paul. It's the same premise. You say that you don't want to make that much money because you don't think about money, but therefore, because you don't have the resources, all you can do is think about money. So this is the point here. Make sure that you start with the end in mind, and the end in mind for us, what we teach our clients is community. It's growth. It's growing the community and making an impact so that, again, we can change the world one decision at a time.
Yep.
And I know this sounds idealistic, but the way to change the world is through self. It's not through mandates. It's not through, group think and shaming of other people in order to do something. It starts with you.
That's it.
That's the idea. That's why we do this podcast.
Yeah.
So it's not about fitness. It's about fitness of self. It's wellness. It's health.
Mm-hmm.
Why? So that we can help other people get well.
Come on.
They need it.
Yep.
That's the key. So I hope this makes sense.
You came to preach today.
I didn't know I was going to do that. So I thought it was going to be more, controversial and humorous, and nevertheless,
It's been all of those things.
yeah. So, guys, we seriously hope that these episodes are making an impact, that they're making a difference. Mm-hmm. These are things that are not just, in our opinions, these are not just some sort of theory or opinion. These are tried and true practices for us. Otherwise, we're not going to recommend them or even talk about them. So I hope that you guys will see how powerful these things can be, and that you will begin to just implement a couple of these practices here and there, and you're going to watch an amazing transformation on the other side.
Absolutely. And so, if you got value out of this, hashtag value down in the comments, and I think that'll be a wrap then.
That'll be it. Guys, be sure to tune in for the next one. I'm not going to tell you what that one's about, but you don't want to miss it. So,
so
notes are there, but I'm not doing that. So, because I want people to show up. It's going to be a surprise. So, nevertheless, guys, we'll catch you on the next